Hi, Principal Matters listeners. This is Will Parker, host of Principal Matters, the School Leaders Podcast, back for another Monday Matters episode with my co-host, Dr. Jen Schwanke. Jen, it's August, and this episode will be coming out, I believe, August 11th. Some schools, depending on where they are already beginning that early. Some are still prepping to begin, bringing teachers back, because I know some folks start in September. It just changes across the U.S., but you've got something that should be out by this month. And so I wanted to invite listeners to a conversation about your new book. Tell us about your new book and where folks can find it.
Right. So, it's coming out in mid-August. I believe August 17th is the day it's released. Pre-orders are open now on Amazon and at ASCD. ASCD has published all of my books, and a wonderful, wonderful company to work for. Here's the thing. This book... books have been written about trust before. So let me just say that, organizational trust and leadership and why that matters. This one I like to think is a little bit different because, as we talked about last week, it dives a little bit into, a lot into the historical trajectory of society being mad at schools when they're actually mad at other things. Mm-hmm. So that's just a little bit of a history lesson. But today I think I'd like to talk a little bit about what makes this book different than just a lecture on how to be trustworthy.
Yeah. Well, and that's why I'm excited, because you take some time to unpack the difference between trustworthy and trust willing. And so can you talk about why those distinctions are important to you?
So this is why I think this book is different than a lot of books about trust. So we have read the books, right? We know, and we've been actually told since we were 2 years old how to be trustworthy. And those things are not new. As a school leader, you have to show character. You have to be honest. You have to do what you say. You have to follow through. You need to model behavior that has integrity and so on. And that's important. I'm not at all diminishing that. And I do spend quite a bit of time in the book talking about those things as they relate to the school setting. But I also, as I was thinking about writing this book, I thought one of the things that I think made me a stronger principal was when I crossed over into being trust willing. So being trustworthy, I feel like I had down pat, but I honestly had to work at being trust willing. Here's why. When I went to school to get my principal's license, the classes were really kind of anti-principal, if that makes sense. The professors would stand up and say, okay, you're all teachers now. Tell us about how this concept relates to your principal. And then we would all weigh in on how our principal is just so terrible at that particular skill. And it was really negative. It was, be careful. Unions will try to get you fired. Teachers are going to try and take shortcuts. Parents will undermine and attack you. Students are going to behave badly. They're going to be disrespectful. They're going to cause disruptions. Watch out for the news. And so, first of all, I can't believe any of us wanted to do the job after that kind of a presentation. Exactly. But it got me thinking about how if we go in with that mindset of us versus them, that's exactly what we're going to get. Mm-hmm. Instead, we have to truly believe in our guts that this is a team and collective efficacy does matter, and be willing to trust the other people in this community, this school community, to do what they need to do. So how does that look in practice? Well, you have to recognize that there are some teachers who might not teach like you would teach, but they're excellent at their jobs. They don't need you to be hypercritical. They don't need micromanaging. Share that leadership. Go down the hall to a teacher and say, you know what, here's something that I really think that we could do. And I think you'd be so awesome to have on this team to brainstorm about it. So it lightens the load. It enhances that circle of trust. It lets others lead and feel valued. It elevates teacher voices. And this is true also for parents. We have to be willing to trust them that they're doing the best they can, regardless of what that looks like. And it certainly applies to students too. Many times we expect all of our students to be all finished growing up, right? And they're not. They're little. Many of them have been on the earth for not long. So we have to keep that in mind.
It feels weird to say this out loud, Jen, but I'm just going to I'm going to repeat the power of what I just heard in those words, which is most of our lives we're taught the power, the importance of being trustworthy. In other words, you can
Hmm.
rely on me. I'm going to do what I say. I have
Right.
integrity. But there is something equally powerful when you extend that trust towards others, not being naive,
Hmm.
not being gullible, not being foolish in the decisions that you're making. But kids can tell, teachers can
Right.
tell, and parents can tell when you're inviting them into an us and us,
Yes.
not an
Yes.
us versus them. And so you're right. It's in some ways the trainings that we've received have tried to prep us for the worst case
That's right.
scenarios, which is important.
That's
That's why experts train us. That's why you teach class on law. That's why we've
right.
all taken classes on school finance and ethics and all those things. But it's the same thing that happens in a great classroom when a teacher voices to the students in the classroom, these are the behaviors and expectations and hopes and dreams and aspirations I have for you because I believe this is what you're capable
Right.
of. Students tend to rise to that expectation versus these are the no's and the don'ts that I need to make sure I communicate to you. And so you begin this book first with that historical look that we talked about last week. So go back, Principal Matters, if you didn't listen to last week's Monday Matters. But now you step into this part of the book by asking people, let's think about your mindset. How are you inviting trust into the
Right.
relationships that you have with your students and with your teachers and in your own behaviors?
Right. I'm teaching my youngest to drive. And from the beginning, I have said to her, "You've got this. I mean, I'm going to tell you to stop it if you're about to run into somebody else's car, but you've got this. You are smart. You have taken the classes. You have, driven around the parking lot. You've got this." And I can physically see her sit up straighter when I remind her of that. And and now I say that because it's true with teachers too. If you say to a teacher, "Hey, you've got this. I know you are going to get those kids ready for that AP test like nobody else is." Or, "Listen, you're welcoming 24 new kindergartners next week. There is nobody I would rather have teaching our 5-year-olds than you." And the same with students too. I have complete faith in you. You've got this. And parents as well. Now, I don't want to sound like a Pollyanna. I know that it's hard. I know there are times that we actually should not put trust in certain people in certain situations, 100%. But many times I think we start with the no rather than start with the yes.
Mm. Okay, Jen, let me play. Um, I don't want to call it the devil's advocate. I just want to put myself into the role of someone who may be listening who wants honest feedback from you. So let me play that role for a minute. Um, I hear what you're saying. Man, I've been burned a lot
Hmm.
by either colleagues or my former principals or the way parents have treated me. How can I change how can I
Hmm.
be trustworthy? How can I be trust willing without getting so burned?
Right. Well, that answer would depend on all the factors that come with it. But here's what my instinct says. You say that. You say, "Listen, parent, I've been burned on this before. Do you think that we can do this together? Because I don't want to get burned again. I want to put the structures in place so that we both come out of this ahead."
Mhm.
Repeat that with a teacher or a student. To say to a student, "Listen, this is the third time this month you've been down here in the office. I want to be able to trust that this isn't going to happen again. I want to be trust willing, but I've been burned. So what can we do differently? What can be put in place so you're not down here next week and we're having this exact same conversation?" And repeat that with teachers too. So let's say you have a teacher who, no matter how many reminders you send, they cannot get their grades in on time. So you might say to that teacher, "All right, I've been burned now 5 times on this. What can we do so that I'm not coming down here at the end of the grading period and, having the same conversation? I want to trust you. I'm willing to trust you in spite of all the evidence to the contrary. Help me help you."
No, I love that. And you don't leave readers without resources, Jen. And this is such a beautiful chapter because you take the opportunity to just unpack every one of those categories. All right, let's unpack it.
Yep.
What are some very practical things you can do when it comes to working with teachers and trusting them and building their own leadership capacity? You do the same thing with parents, you do the same thing with
Mhm.
students. What are some other examples you want to give as we're wrapping up of some things that people can keep in mind to
Well,
be
yeah,
trustworthy?
you're right. I do talk about teachers and parents and students, and for each one, I have kind of three buckets. Well, you talk about buckets a lot. I love it. Three buckets where that trust can live. And the first is to let others lead, and that applies to teachers, parents, and students. Um, just as an example, well, wait, let me finish. So let them lead, elevate their voices, and give them chances.
Mm,
Don't write anybody off right away. But when I think about letting others lead, I talk all the time about letting teachers lead, but I also think that's very true with parents and students. I talk in the book about meeting a football coach. He was my son's football coach, and it was unbelievable. He rarely spoke. On the field, he did. He coached his guts out, but on parent nights, on team meals, on award nights, on senior dinners, he did not speak because his athletes did.
mm,
He let them do that. And, I think if we're always grabbing for the microphone because we think we're the only ones that can say it right, do it right, get the message across, we're not being trust willing. And then
mm.
what that does is it makes the people that we want to help us lead, it makes them mute. And no one likes to be muted.
Yep. Oh, that's so beautiful. So I know we need to wrap this up, Jen, because you and I have time constraints on our even our recording
Well,
time. But
we have other things to do for Principal Matters. That's all.
we do. But I just want to say this: those three categories you take time to unpack with so many really practical examples of how do you let others lead when it comes to teachers and students and parents and the people you're. How do you elevate their voices and how do you give them chances? So I'm just telling you, you need to pick up a copy of Jen's new book if you haven't already.
Well,
You can listen into these conversations, and we're going to summarize. But this is such a great resource, Jen, and I know people that may want to do this as a book study, or they may want you to come in and lead some of this with their staff. So, how can folks get a hold of you if that's something they want to do?
yep, absolutely. You can go to my website at jenschwanke.com. There's a link to my newsletter there and also a way you can send an email to me or directly to me, jen@jenschwanke.com. So thank you. Well, you've been very kind about this book. So now tell them how they can find you.
Well, you can find me and all of my resources, including this podcast, at williamdparker.com. And of course, Jen and I both love to be with schools and do team trainings and keynotes and all that stuff that we do. But it all started, Jen, with us with these conversations of inviting people into podcasts, and both of us love to write, and so
Yep.
so man, the problem with my friendship with you is this is your fifth book and I've done four, so now I have to do five.
Right, you
So
do.
that I can keep trying to chase Dr. Schwanke.
Well, yeah, I think I may have said everything I need to say, so this might be it. But don't chase me. Your books are
That's the
amazing.
best thing about a book is I usually wait until I've got something else to say.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
So we'll get there. Well, Principal Matters listeners, thank you. We would love to hear what you have to say. So if you've got comments, questions, things you would like for Jen or me to chew on for the show, or if you want to reach out to us, you can always find me at my website at williamdparker.com or email me at will@williamdparker.com. And Jen, how can they email you?
Yep, they can find me at jen@jenschwanke.com.
All right, friends, until next time, thanks for doing what matters, and we'll talk to you soon.